It's Tuesday, September 12th, 2017, and this is Seaside Chats with Kenneth Arthur, the weekly podcast on the Seahawks, where this season I'm sitting down and I'm talking to comedians, writers, improvisers, people in entertainment or of note of some sort who are fans of some team, and we'll be talking either about the Seahawks or the team that the Seahawks are playing this week. And this week, that team is the 49ers. But and usually I've been having on strictly someone who is a fan of the other team. But this week, get to bring in someone who is a fan of the Seahawks, Seattle native and Seahawks fan, Nick Thune, who I'm sure many of you know from Twitter or his stand-up specials or Comedy Bang Bang and so on. Nick, thank you so much for coming on and joining me today.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm a big fan of Nick Thune, so this is great.
Are you one of Nick Thune's biggest fans?
I think I'm top 10.
In the top 10?
Yeah.
How many? How many? If you when you're a comedian and you know you're creeping into the 100,000 territory on Twitter, would you be able to like list out? I think I know my 10 top fans. If you had to write down like a top 10 list, do you think you could do that?
Of like people that interact with me on social media? Yeah, for sure. Especially like the difference between Twitter and Instagram.
What's the difference there?
Instagram, you know, it's more like I mean, I do have like, I guess I could name like 10 kind of fans that interact, but also like I could name, you know, like 10 actors or comedians that interact. You know, like with which it's more, I feel like that happens a little bit. It happens on Twitter a lot too, I guess, but sometimes it feels like you're just talking to other people that do what you do, and then other people just kind of happen to be looking in.
Yeah.
And then also it's a good place to reach out to athletes.
It is. Do you have any favorite athlete follows?
Well, Brendan McCarthy he's a pitcher for the Dodgers. And he's pretty active on Twitter. He's probably the funniest pro athlete, I would say. Super into it and interacts a lot with people. When you're a starting pitcher, you know, you can do that because you have like 5 days off at a time where you could just tweet all day.
Yeah.
Blake Griffin has been a big interactor. I met him and interviewed him for this thing, and then he kind of kept in touch with me.
Yeah, he's a huge comedy fan.
Yeah, he loves it. He did a show in Montreal last year. He hosted a show at midnight for a week, and I did it one night in some small little theater. It was fun.
Do you think?
Also, I DM'd with Richard Sherman once.
How did that go?
It was great. Well, he was doing his softball game, and I really wanted to be a part of it, and I didn't. You know, I've got the Mariners to let me throw first pitch, based on Twitter. And jokingly like getting my fans to like, you know, like there's like a hashtag Thune for first pitch. And then I got Rich Eisen to step in, and he's the one that made it happen. Then he stepped in with Richard as well. And Richard DM'd me and just said, "Hey bro, what's up?" I was like, I think I'd be a great asset to your celebrity softball game. Also, I'm a huge fan. You know, I was so nervous.
Yeah. Well, that's
and
nice.
He wrote back, maybe next year. We're all full or whatever, which probably means never, but
yeah. Well, you never know if you keep on sending those messages, and
you just gotta harp on people.
Yeah, just keep harping on him. Well, let's go back to the beginning then. You know, we got a lot of people listening who are from Washington, of course, not all, but many, and so. I like the idea of people also being able to come onto a podcast and talk specifics about Seattle or whatever, knowing that the people listening will be like, oh yeah, I know what that is. Cause I know I live in Hollywood, and I've gone to stand-up shows where the stand-up will literally be talking about my block. And while I don't know how that's, you know, relevant to most of the people in the audience, I'm like, hey, this is great. What he's talking about.
Yeah, it's happening. Like they do a joke about San Vicente.
Yeah. It's so it's a good feeling. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? And you know, like how were your like high school specific? Let's get into it.
Yeah, I was born in Tacoma, and then we moved to Portland pretty quick after that. which would explain my love for the Blazers. I think my dad was a big he grew up in Portland and was a big Blazer fan, so we were never on board with the Sonics ever. Hated them. I mean, in just every team that I like, it's an absolute ride or die situation. Everyone else I hope gets injured.
Yeah.
The guys. So like I would never root for or half root for anybody. The only exception I've ever made is the Dodgers, because I've moved so close to Dodger Stadium, and I just I would say baseball is the sport that I liked playing the most. So I like going to live baseball. I do not like going to live football very much.
Yeah.
I'd rather watch it at home where I feel secure, and I can like really let my emotions out, because I get a little more frustrated during football than any other sport. It's cooled down a little bit, but there was a while where people would want to come over to our house and watch the games, and then I think there was definitely a drop off of like, my wife's like, I think you're scaring people.
Yeah. I went to Washington State, and then I was watching the game because it was on ESPN. So I was at a bar, and there were some other friends there, and nobody gives a shit about it. Of course, I'm watching the TV, and the Cougs are down 21 points, and they start this comeback. And I mean, I don't even think I reacted that largely, but like they scored a touchdown on a fumble recovery, and I was like, yes. And they gave me such a reaction that I had to leave them. I was like, apparently I'm ruining your night. You're ruining my night.
Yeah.
And they're the ones to separate.
They're the ones that have the bars. They have it on TV for a reason. They want people to interact and enjoy, right?
That's what I think.
My best bar game ever was last year. I landed in Boston 5 minutes after the game started with the Patriots, that we beat them in, which to me was the best football game of the year, I thought, except for, the Patriots comeback was that was good. But I went to my hotel. My family begged me to not go out and just to watch the game at the hotel. So I started in my room, went down to the hotel bar. There was one other person there. He turns out he's from Copenhagen, doesn't even know what football is. So I'm just getting heated. The bartender's maybe a little annoyed. And then at halftime, I was so confident. I crossed the street to this underground bar where there were people in like Patriots jerseys. And I watched, and it would never make up for the Super Bowl and that play and how that felt. But, oh my God, it felt so good. I mean, I don't think I've had a bigger smile. I never felt more joy. I was just texting everyone that I knew that are Seahawks fans, like pictures of me in a bar next to Patriot fans. Like, oh, so great. Yeah. I bought them all a drink afterwards. I felt like I owed it to them.
Yeah, I mean, I had like a life-changing experience watching a game at a bar, which was 4.5 years ago when the Seahawks were playing the Falcons in the divisional round, and the ups and downs of that fourth quarter. I mean, I never felt as much joy as when the Seahawks took the lead and it looked like they were going to the NFC Championship game. There was no way that they could, come out after they had done it. It's just like, well, they got this. And then I had never felt such a low as when they ended up blowing it in the final seconds. And so, I mean, I had smoked cigarettes very heavily for 10 years. And that's the last day I ever smoked, because I was like, well, this sucks. And then I didn't smoke for a couple of days because I was very depressed. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll just never smoke again. And then I'll say that this was a good thing that happened to me. And I haven't smoked.
Yeah, you turn it around.
Gotta turn those negatives into positives.
Yeah, obviously the Seahawks Patriots Super Bowl. I couldn't believe it. It didn't make sense when the play happened. And then I went outside and heard my neighbors celebrating. There was people like 3 doors up celebrating, Patriot fans. And I sat down on a chair in my backyard. Like I broke it. I didn't break it out of anger. I didn't throw it. I just sat down so hard that the chair just fell out from under me.
Yeah.
And then when Donald Trump won the election, I walked out into the same backyard and the exact same neighbors were cheering.
Wow.
Just to get an idea of what Patriots fans were like.
That's like, you know, that's something that is talked about a little bit, but I don't think it's talked about very much, just how closely connected the Patriots are to Donald Trump.
With that, they're all just racist pieces of shit. I'm just kidding. I'm sure there's at least 5 that aren't.
5 to 6.
But anyway, like going back to, yeah, I lived in Portland until I was 7, then we moved up to Redmond. And I basically grew up in Redmond and then lived in Ballard for 5 years and then moved down to LA. And, you know, lots of highs and lows with the Mariners while I was a kid, obviously, like some of the best years ever. Some hard losses and some Yankee hate, and, you know, some of that stuff will never leave.
So what was who was your like first favorite Seahawk, and like that first favorite team? Because you know, they definitely had some lows in the 90s and then some medium highs after like Mike Holmgren. When was your introduction and your first like real favorite player?
You know, I would say Cortez. You know, he was just one of those things that it was like, he was so fun to watch and explosive. And I think everybody liked Bosworth, you know. I mean, that was like a fun little, you know, also Steve Largent, who just seemed like just a good guy, you know.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of funny, like how many unknown players played for him. Like, I remember when I was in 6th grade, a Seahawk came to class, and I don't even remember who he was. And I just remember being like, God, I don't think I know most of the players. I think I know like the 3. And, you know, like, and then the guy that retired last year that now has a car dealership, or, you know, whatever, like you know, but like, yeah, I mean, Cortez Kennedy, Steve Largent. I was just actually sent somebody that video of Steve Largent hitting that dude. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
What's it? I forget who he hits. It's legendary.
It's I mean,
it's
one of those things that the Seahawks can't even. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was saying like, because he was getting the guy back for like knocking him out, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's such a badass play by such a like already a great player, but it's just such a it's such a badass play that you can't. It's so like energizing when you watch it.
Oh my God, it's one of those things where you're like, yeah, the guy is like a good, you know, a good person getting revenge, and it makes you feel like, all right, sometimes it's okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you're a good enough person, it'll just be handed to you.
You know, and yeah, I mean, I mean, like totally unrelated. Before I was doing any Seahawks or like even sports writing, this was like 8 or 9 years ago when I was still living in, or even 10 years ago, and I guess I was still living in the area, and we were doing this. I was working at this company that like was doing personal video autobiographies for people. So, you know, we would basically treat anybody like a documentary subject and go over their whole lives, and to try and get off the ground and get some like good like pub or whatever. We did one for free for Jim Zorn. So like we went to his house in Mercer Island, and yeah, Jim Zorn and Steve Largent was there because they're just friends. And so like they're still hanging out, and it was like they were just literally 2 of the nicest guys I had ever met.
I mean, I always like Zorn too. I like Zorn too because of the name. It's just Zorn. Oh, yeah. Zorn was a cool name.
It was very cool. I mean, like Zorn and Largent together. I mean, it's the perfect underdog story of these guys aren't supposed to be here, and you know, and the Largent not supposed to be this good, you know, retiring as like the all-time leading receiver or whatever.
Yeah, that's insane. And you just don't see there are, I mean, is there another receiver that's anything like his build now? I mean, you could say like Edelman, but Edelman's like a buff dude.
Yeah.
I mean, and I guess we're just saying, are there any white receivers?
Look at the Patriots. Amendola, Hogan. So after, so as that goes on into like the time that the Seahawks were actually pretty good under Mike Holmgren, what were your how was that for you to see like Hasselbeck, Alexander? Did you have guys that you really favored the most on that team, or
I
guys
love
that maybe
both
you
those
didn't like?
guys. I love both those guys, but I have this period in my 20s where I just stepped away from sports altogether.
Mm-hmm.
It was like it was when I moved to LA, and the Mariners had just like had a huge run. They were like, it was so fun to watch. And I just got so dedicated to comedy that until I think for 8 to 9 years, I was just totally away from sports.
Yeah.
And that was during that Hasselbeck kind of run. So, like, the whole Pittsburgh thing, I was kind of coming back around, and I was tuning in and watching it, but I never, since I've come back to the Seahawks, like, not like I was ever a fan of any other team.
Yeah.
I know more about the team now than I've known about most things in my life.
What is it difficult when you're fully immersed in the comedy world? Is it difficult to find other people that give a shit about sports? It feels like a lot of comedians make fun of sports, or are there a lot of sports fans in that world?
There are certain people that are sports fans, and you find them, and you guys, I mean, it's just like text, like
Yeah.
I've got this group of friends that one of them is a gambler. And he's actually he likes the Packers and the Steelers,
Uh-huh.
or maybe just the Steelers more, but like he really just kind of is. It's like these guys that play fantasy sports, which I have nothing against, and I bet someday I might hop into it. But I'm still like, I just don't care about any other player. Like, so the thought of like rooting for anybody just for my benefit seems horrible. Where I'm like hoping that they all have the worst games, and that everyone on our team is higher than them in every rating.
I mean, I think that is like maybe the more extreme point of view, but I think that's exactly like how I feel about it too. It's just, I hate watching people watch games and root against their team or root in some fashion because of this one player on the other team. Like, well, I don't give a shit about the result. I just want, Jeremy Maclin to score on this. And it's like, fuck you. That's not, who cares? It's so.
The only time I ever root for anybody else is if the team that they're playing losing benefits my team.
Yeah.
That's it. My brother has a great moment. So my brothers go to a lot of other twins, and they're like 5 years younger. They still live up in the Seattle area, and they go to a lot of games, live games. My brother's friend has like season tickets that are pretty good. And Monday Night Football 2 years ago, there was a moment where a player on the other team did something. No, a player on what the fuck was it? Oh, a play on our team that got stopped, and we won the game. But it was like this moment where another player like picked us up, or I forget what the fuck happened, but it was against the Seahawks.
Uh-huh.
And I was at home, and I had a freeze frame of my brother frowning when the Seahawks had a receiver just cut something on a cornerback, and it was good for the Seahawks, bad for the cornerback, who my brother was playing in fantasy at that moment. And my brother was like frowning, and it turned into like this kind of meme text between family and friends, like the worst dude ever in a Seahawks jersey frowning on a 50-yard completion. Like it was just kind of funny to see a guy unhappy about a successful play, and that's what fantasy sports is to me.
Yeah, it's a bummer, I think, in that aspect, but and I just don't like. I mean, I gave up fantasy sports like 5 years ago just because. Yeah. Plus, I was like, I'm spending my entire day researching the NFL, and I'm not doing that well in fantasy. So screw this. I mean, maybe, bitter, but also I was just aware. I became more aware of the fact that it is a crapshoot anyway. So, people will tell me I got a great team. I'm loaded. I got blah, blah, blah. But, people who were saying that about, and I know that I have a couple names here that I can't think of. Someone who got injured this week and went on IR for the year. Well, it's like that simple, and it doesn't make me happy about, I'm personally bummed when someone's season gets wiped out, and I'm like, whoa, I really wanted to see them do something.
Yeah, I also feel bad because I know how much they've invested into something, and like if it's a bad enough injury, and if they're at a certain age, then it's like, well, there goes their future.
Yeah. Like Kevin White of the Bears, you know,
Yeah.
he's now pretty much lost 2 of his first 3 seasons, really just all of his first 3 seasons, and maybe he never plays.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's so brutal. I mean, last year, this was a funny moment when Lockett broke his leg.
Uh-huh.
That was on, I think that was on Christmas Eve. Maybe it was Christmas Day. I can't remember. But I had a couple of my friends live up in Richmond, like the Tri-City area.
Uh-huh.
And it's called Richmond, right? I think so.
Yeah, Richmond, Kennewick.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd sent there's 3 brothers and, you know, parents, and they all have wives. I sent them 8 hard hat beer helmets for Christmas, like as a big family gift. And so basically that morning they all got delivered from like some Amazon thing. So they all loaded up their hard hat helmets with 1 beer on each side with the long straws coming into their mouth, and FaceTime me as we just got back from a commercial from Lockett getting injured, and they weren't really even paying attention to the game, and they were like, "Hey," and I was like, "Why would you call me right now? Why would you call me right now? I'm glad you got the beer helmets. Congrats. Don't lose my number." That was so heartbreaking to me.
Yeah.
That injury was the toughest I've seen in a long time, where I just was like, no.
Yeah. I mean, the Earl Thomas injury as well is just...
That one was brutal. Yeah, but watching him preseason, like, walk away from some big hits, like, just like he used to, and even on Sunday, it's like, all right, good. He's back. It didn't get into his head like I thought it might.
So yeah, let's get into some of the specifics about the team right now. Obviously, 0-1 after a 17-9 loss to Green Bay. What were your thoughts after the game in terms of, I know, you know, the big takeaways were the offensive line and the officiating. What were your takeaways after this?
I just didn't think. I mean, I just want to see Russell run the ball more. I would never say this to anybody, but if you were to be at my office or at my home and you wanted to sign on to my Wi-Fi, it's Seahawks and the password is run the ball. Because listen, I love that Russ has gotten this kind of passing thing, and when he can run the opposite way and still, like, I think 2 of those or 3 of those passes that he had where he was running to the left, you know, and still, like, against everything has the muscle and that. And I love that he's become a passer. Like, you know, like Cam Newton, I don't think he'll never be a passer.
Right.
He's a runner. He's also, he can't slide worth shit. You know, Russell can, like, run and slide and protect himself.
Totally.
And I see a longer career there, and the passing is important. But God damn it. And it was good to see. It's Carson, right?
Yeah.
That kid. Yeah, that was good. I like that. You know what? I don't need to see Lacey again. I'm sorry. Don't need to see it.
I think that's fair.
When you watch like Marshawn's runs from this last weekend, of course I miss him, and I think he's actually probably the only non-Seahawk that I'm rooting for.
Yeah.
Because I just fucking love him so much. But like watching him like follow a defender and not even be running, like basically like have his hand on their back and looking and just like, where do I go? You know, like, I'm not just going to run into everything. I'm going to figure out what exactly I'm going to run into. And Lacey to me is just a guy that he just starts high stepping from the second the ball gets into his hand. And I don't like that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with Marshawn Lynch too, because it made me think earlier when we were talking about what are funny athletes, and I wanted, at the time, I had a question in my mind of like, for A, do you think LeBron James is funny with all of his acting, and B, do you think now I'm thinking, do you think Marshawn Lynch is funny? Because he doesn't like go out and do comedy totally. He's done the league a couple times, but he seems to be one of these naturally funny guys. Do you think those guys are funny?
I think LeBron James is charming, which sometimes people mix with being funny. I think Marshawn Lynch has the best timing of like any NFL player. Yeah. As far as joke, I mean, and as far as getting it, you watch him actually sit and think before he answers questions. So he's actually formulating his usually comedic version, but then also genuine answers if it's someone he respects that's asking it to him.
Yeah.
My friend is a huge Panthers fan. And he actually last year, as a joke, signed me up to audition to be in the fucking marching band for the Panthers. Like, it's
Pretty
still,
good.
I've been getting emails for a while, but he was in Oakland and he sent me a picture in front of the Beast Mode store. I mean, this is just what would make anybody ever want to fall in love with him. And I said, go in there and buy me something. And he said, absolutely never. And then he said, oh my God, Marshawn just walked in. And so he like was just kind of hanging out waiting. And then Marshawn, I guess, like went out across the street. I think it's to a Starbucks. And so we followed him to the Starbucks, was just keeping tabs. And I guess Marshawn ordered a mocha and then came out. It's good to know that he still misses Seattle.
Yeah.
And then he came out of the store and there was a homeless kid on the sidewalk, and Marshawn went into his store and grabbed a hoodie off the first rack that was in there, walked out and just tossed it at the homeless kid as he got into his car and took off.
I mean, that's like very cool. Not just in like, oh yeah, he's such a more of a charitable, caring, giving guy that a lot of people say, but also I think that's like one of the dreams of owning a business is like, I'm just gonna go in here, take some stuff, and take it out of here, give it to something else, whatever.
I could see like some kid behind the register that's like, wait, we've got to account for all the product. Okay, whatever you need to do, Marshawn.
Yeah. Oh man.
And then one other story about him real quick though,
yeah,
was
for sure.
one time the Hyatt in Bellevue, which I guess is where the players stay, right? The nights before games. I'm not quite sure.
I don't know
think
that.
So I've heard something like this, but anyway, I got picked up from a driver from that Hyatt to go to the airport. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, I'm glad that I'm getting home before the game today. And he was like, yeah, if you're a Seahawks fan, you're flying home. And he goes, I during the summer I hang out by the training camp and pick up the guys, and take them back home or whatever. And Marshawn actually like took my card and uses me like for personal trips to the airport. Like if it's not like a team related thing, he calls this guy. And Marshawn actually had, I don't know if he still has a house, but he had a house in Clyde Hill, which was really close to where my wife's family lives. And he has like this long kind of hill driveway that you get up, and there's not a lot of room at the top for turning around. And he pulled up there, and there was a Lamborghini in the the thing, mm-hmm. and it actually made it really hard for the guy to turn around. This mm-hmm. the way that the car was parked. And Marshawn like gave the guy's bags, went in front of the Lamborghini, lifted it in the front, and moved it over 6 inches.
Holy shit.
Which I guess somebody was saying like they're really light cars, and especially up front, like there's no engine up front.
Yeah.
But like, the guy tells me the story, and I want to believe everything that he said to me, because I want to believe any kind of rumor I hear about that guy.
Yeah. And I also just want to believe, fuck it. That car is really heavy. You know what? It's really heavy. He's a superhero.
I'm let's just say this about Sunday. I wanted to win that game. I wanted to send a message. I'm disappointed in the O-line. Those calls, Lane getting kicked out, was just to me like absolute bullshit. I had a friend that was watching it with me that actually, and he's the Panthers fan, and his conspiracy theory is the NFL doesn't want Aaron Rodgers to have a pick six. And I was just like, okay. Well, that doesn't make sense to me, but that's okay. I'm going to believe that. I'm going to believe it goes that deep.
Yeah.
Because how was there no like, oh, hey, looks like he actually never punched him, and it turns out it was actually a face mask. And that would have canceled out the other thing. Right. So like,
right.
That would have been a pick six. That should have been a pick six. It would have changed the whole direction of the game.
That whole sequence of events was, insane. When it happened and it was a pick six, it was just, there was nothing that you watched the play. There was nothing that in our view that could have gone wrong. I remember just like not even paying attention. I think I was trying to write a quick story on what had just happened and follow Twitter and everything like that. And then when I turned my eyes up, the Seahawks are at the 50-yard line. I'm like, what happened? What's wrong? How is this not? What is going on right now? And then you watch the replays and you realize you didn't miss anything. I saw the play as it happened. There was not really a block in the back. There was not a punch. It was just insanity at the time. And
I remember watching him do the kind of that whatever that block was, and I remember thinking like, "Don't touch him. He's already giving up. Like you don't even need to touch him."
I mean, Aaron Rodgers was running on that play to look good on camera. I mean, he was like, I gotta pretend like I'm trying here.
Yeah, it's like Bryce Harper running out a ground ball.
Exactly. It was a bummer, and if they had gotten the play like they should have, probably if they don't win, it comes down to a much different final.
That would have changed everything. Aaron Rodgers would have been mentally fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, he already was. He was so angry. I mean, those are moments that change the whole game. And at that point, then the Seahawks feel like they're not getting treated right. So then Pete Carroll is getting angry, and it's changing the mood on the sideline. And it's doing all these things where you can just see people getting frustrated. You know, and I love it when they show like the team, you know, like jumping up and down when like the defense is getting pumped up. When they had that, like they were trying to get a goal line stop off that fumble, but it was just like, God, that fumble was so frustrating. And in the end, I realized that at first I thought it was just really bad. I thought Russell was just really not holding the ball well. I think he could have been holding it a little better, but the guy got his hand in. The guy knocked the ball.
Yeah, I mean, on the bright side, Naz Jones intercepted Aaron fucking Rodgers, and he looked fast as hell when he was running it back.
I know, I loved that. He did turn it on there for a second. But how sad to take away a pick six from a rookie first game like that, you know, against Aaron Rodgers.
It's it feels like, you know, who's that pitcher for the Tigers that got this perfect game taken away by a bad call?
Yeah, or the Dodgers pitcher this year that pitched 9 no-hit innings.
Yeah,
Rich Hill, and then gave up a home run in the 10th.
Sports
crazy.
Bummer sometimes. You know, as a Seahawks fan and as an NFL follower who lives in LA a lot, and what are your thoughts on the Rams and Chargers being here? Obviously you get the Seahawks once a year in LA, but just in general, someone who knows the pulse of LA football sports fans and sports fans in general, what are your thoughts on two teams being here?
I mean, I could really care less about both those teams, obviously.
Yeah.
It is cool that the Seahawks are going to be down here. Last year I went to the game, the first game the Rams played, you know, with the Seahawks, and it was the worst game ever. The one thing that I brought away from that game was Lockett had an amazing, like 60-yard conversion, like catch that was just beautiful, like over the shoulder. That's the only thing that came out of that game. And it was 110 degrees, and they ran out of water in the late third quarter. It was horrific. And I made a commitment that I was never going to go to another game there until they had the new stadium.
Yeah.
Just because it was maybe they figured it out now, but I was just like, oh my God. And I really don't like being at a football game. I like so much more being at my house.
Me too.
And just having it controlled. I would totally I think I'm going to fly up for one game this year.
Did you ever get like box treatment or treatment up there?
I haven't. I want. Believe me, I'm going to look for it. I'm going to try and get it. What day is the Eagles game? That's the game I was thinking about going to.
The Eagles is Sunday, December 3rd. It's a Sunday Night Football.
Yeah. I think I'm thinking about flying up for that.
I'm
also thinking about pulling a move where I don't even tell my family that I'm in town. I think I'll just fly up in the afternoon, get a hotel. It'll be fun. Yeah. That'll be a really fun game.
So to wrap it up and focus on this weekend as well, just quickly, the Seahawks do go back home as well. They take on the 49ers. You've talked a lot about how much you hate other teams. The 49ers were the big rival for a while when they were actually good. How do you feel about going into a 49ers game now? Do you hate them just as much? Do you hate someone else more now?
Don't even care about them. I mean, to me, a 49er game is, that could be a make or break season moment there. I mean, it's not going to make it if we win it, but it could break it if we lose it. And
it'd be a bummer.
It would be a big bummer, and that mentally would really fucking do something. I mean, here's what I think: is it possible? And I don't always know like the trade rules, but could we trade Jimmy Graham this week and get an offensive lineman?
Technically, that is within the rules.
Can they do that? Do you know enough people to talk to them about it?
I can. I know I'm like 1 degree of separation from John Schneider. My 1 degree really doesn't have any business telling him what to do. But
how disappointed were you with the Jimmy Graham? I mean,
again, it's tough. I as someone who I have to have a very centered, logical standpoint from everything that happens. But I mean, and I do believe that bad refereeing is simply bad refereeing, and it's not one side or another. I think they're just bad sometimes, and I think it feels not great to have those two plays taken away. But I think Jimmy Graham is a phenomenal player who is maybe not getting the amount of doing what he does so well in Seattle as opposed to maybe some other place where he could be, an insanely high volume player.
I mean, if you're gonna drop a ball that hits your hands, then we don't need you on the team.
Yeah.
I can't help like that. That to me is just like, dude, that's what you are paid to do right there. And there's not an easier version of it than that. Like, it was a well thrown ball. It was right where it needed to be. I mean, I think the guy has a little fear in him. Like, when you watch him block and stuff, it's just like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Why can't you be like Gronk?
7 targets for 8 yards. Not good.
No. And I mean, yeah, the PI thing in the end zone, like,
yeah.
I remember watching the pass and thinking, oh, it's overthrown before it even got to him. Watching the way that he was treated, thinking, oh shit, well, that's pass interference. There's no other way to explain that.
Yeah.
But then thinking, but the ball was just not even catchable. But then seeing the replay from the back, it was like, oh shit. Yeah, that big guy could have got that.
Oh, for sure.
And
that's what Jimmy Graham does, is he gets those high balls.
Yeah, but there was also another play where he didn't jump up and didn't get a ball that was just like, dude, why aren't you jumping? What's going on here?
Yeah.
There's also one that was like right by the goal line.
I know one of our writers, Ben Baldwin, brought up a clip on Twitter of the Amara Darboh play where he gets pushed out of bounds by 3 Packers. And there was, maybe you could make an argument that Darboh didn't need to jump for that ball. And sort of just.
But what about the way that it almost looked like from one angle that he made it over the thing?
Yeah. He didn't end up retaining possession as he went down.
Oh, that's right.
But I mean, I was encouraged a little bit by his athleticism on the play, but it's something that hopefully, I mean, look, at the end of the day, the Seahawks lost in Green Bay. It was their toughest place that they play, period. The toughest opponent that Russell Wilson, he just struggles against them all the time. They don't do well in Green Bay, and at the end of the day,
not when they're in the playoffs.
Yeah. So
that game was one of the games I'll never forget.
The Cardinals lost David Johnson probably for the whole season.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot. I don't believe the Rams are going to, be good. I don't buy into the Rams at this point, and the 49ers obviously not.
No.
So
no, I know. So we're gonna make it, but let's just hope the injury factor, all that stuff. We just got to keep guys healthy, and we got to get rid of Jimmy Graham and get an O-line.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I love Jimmy Graham, but I just watching Russell.
Yeah.
Like having to throw the ball away that many times.
For sure, and not to have some more time would be phenomenal. Nick Thune, this has been a fantastic chat, man. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you.
Lots of great specifics and stories. I know where can people in Seattle find you online and in person?
Well, I've got the nickthune.com, or just it's nickthune.com, where you can get my tour dates. But I'll be at the Parlor actually in Bellevue this week, Thursday through Saturday, 6 or 5 shows.
Awesome.
Yeah. So go to those.
Thursday through Saturday, the Parlor in Bellevue. Go check out Nick Thune, 5 shows. Follow him on Twitter, nickthune.com. Nick, thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.